Welcome to another review. This is of the new GW Citadel paints. So in this particular video I'm going to be looking at the shade range, which is replacing the old wash range. So here's Badab Black from the old range, and where's the new one? The new version of that is Nuln, I think that's how you pronounce it, Nuln oil. So I'm going to do a quick comparison. So with your washes, you got to always make sure you shake them up, and I'll show you why. If you look at the heavy metal medium here, you might be able to tell, looks like there's a bit of a cloudy bit at the bottom. So heavy metal medium is basically wash without the pigment, which is the same as the Lanneman or whatever it's called, the new medium that's part of the range. And so if you can see there, if I get the angle right, you can kind of see at the bottom it's whiter. You shake it up a bit and it becomes sort of consistent all the way through. So it's always important that you shake your washes, shake them up good. So first off, sounds about the same. And okay, so we're opening it up and look inside. The initial impression is okay, so basically from all I can tell it looks exactly the same. So I'm working on some Space Marine land speeders here. So this is base coated with bolt gun metal, and I typically give my bolt gun metal a black wash. So I'm going to do a comparison side by side here. So loading up a brush, and so this is Badab Black going on here. You can kind of see how that behaves around the cracks. And so we'll do just a section of that here, just so we have a nice comparison. And get all the air bubbles out. Okay, so there's what Badab Black looks like. Well, it's wet, and obviously we'll have to let that dry and see what that turns out like. So let's use Nuln oil and see how that goes on. So basically, I don't know, I can't see much of a difference here. Seems to be about the same, no real noticeable change. I didn't wash the brush, but I don't think that matters. If anything, maybe a little bit less bubbles forming, maybe a little bit more or less surface tension, so it flows a little bit easier, but I mean that's hard to really tell. So I'm just going to keep going on this side here with Nuln oil. Yeah, it seems to have maybe a little bit less surface tension. So you can make your own washes by adding a matte medium to water and some pigments. I've seen different videos where people use a drop of dish soap in a big batch to help reduce the surface tension. The other things I've seen are people using Windex, again, to reduce the surface tension. If you notice with water, you can fill up a glass of water and get a sort of a curve above the top of the edge of a glass. It's called a meniscus curve, and that's based on the surface tension of water, so the water wanting to stick to itself. So if you add in some sort of an additive to water, you can reduce that surface tension. And I'm going back to Badab Black here. Reduce that surface tension to help it flow more like something like a solvent, like your turpentine or whatever. You notice that flows much easier. It doesn't form droplets like water does. So you can get water to behave that way by adding a tiny bit of detergent or some other sort of similar material. So yeah, going back and forth here, I would say that there's a slighter propensity or a slighter tendency to form bubbles with the old Badab Black, but the coverage and the finish seems to be virtually the same. So this side here on the right is all Nuln oil, and the other side is all Badab Black, and we'll see if they dry glossy or matte compared to each other. So we'll let that go. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to try the one that everybody's asking about, and that is where is it here? The Earthshade. So Agrax Earthshade, and this is the new Devlin mud, which the old Devlin mud was known as liquid talent. So is this going to be as effective? And we'll try to maybe look at a couple others, but I'll keep this video going. Okay, so I'll see you in a second with the Devlin mud comparison. Alright, so I've prepared these two black orcs with their double-handed whatever thing. So this one here is bolt gun metal, and this is the new lead belcher, which is supposed to replace it. The difference is, I would say, lead belcher looks like it has a little touch of brown in it, and it's not quite as smooth, but I'm using an older bottle of bolt gun metal that I've had to add some water to, and here's lead belcher here. So I've heard some people say that the pigments are not quite as fine or something like that, but it's a little different, but it's very, very close. It's still a very nice nice metallic, which GW always had. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Agrax Earthshade on the lead belcher. So that's going to be our new Devlin mud trial. And again, it paints on nicely. I would say that this paints on actually better than the old washes. So we'll see if the color looks the same at the end of it all, but my impression is that paints on very well. So I think actually that's a win. So let's get Devlin mud. Now my Devlin mud is almost empty. I used to go through a lot of that, painting all my orcs and whatnot, orcs and ogres and orcs and goblins. So Devlin mud is something I buy lots of. So you can see it's going on well. It ends up getting a little bit. Oh, you know what? This wasn't fully dry. I went a bit early. So I'll come back and we'll take a look at this. But yeah. First impression when it's wet is very similar color. So we'll wrap this video up by looking at things when they're completely dry, and then I'll move on to the next set of ranges. So feel free to comment on this and give me your impressions or ask further questions. Alright, so I'm actually going to do one more comparison here. So I'm going to do Thraka green compared to Beil-Tan, whatever that is. I think the thing that's going to kill me the most with these new names is trying to pronounce them for these videos. Anyways, these two are supposed to be equivalent on the GW chart, which I highly recommend printing out. They have a PDF on the website. You can print that out and compare everything. So they show you what all the old range are in the new range. So I've base coated these again with the, so this is Narlock Green and this is Lorien Forest. And that'll be, I'll talk about that in a foundation versus bases tutorial or review. So I'm going to do the old Narlock with the Thraka, because that's how I used to do some of my orcs. I like the name Thraka Green, it's easier to pronounce. And so here we are comparing the washes once again. So just painting a nice thick coat of that on here. And let's try the Beil-Tan green. And okay, just trying to get that to stay open there. And let's see how this goes on. So yeah, it seems as though these washes flow a little bit better. You have a little bit more flow into all the cracks immediately. So again, the sort of lower surface tension and helps you get better coverage faster, I would say. You don't have to play around as much. So there's those guys done up. I'll let them dry, and then we'll look at all three of these examples together at the end. Alright, so this is going to be the last part in this video. Okay, so let's look at the dried versions of things. So let's start from the beginning. So this is Badab Black versus Nuln Oil. So this side over here on the left is all Badab Black, and there's a couple little spots that aren't quite dry in there, but that's okay. And this side here is all Nuln Oil. So looking for reflections here, you can see that there's basically the same sort of finish. I wouldn't call that any sort of noticeable difference, especially if you're doing tabletop sort of level. If there's anything beyond that, well, I'm having a hard time seeing a big difference at all. So in terms of black, over top of bolt gun metal. So this is a base coat of bolt gun metal. This is, I'd say, basically identical. Now moving over to Devlin mud versus that Earthshade one. Where is it here? Agrax Earthshade. So this here. Let's see here. Okay, this is bolt gun metal and Devlin mud. So let's bring that to center. And this is the lead belcher with Agrax Earthshade. So I would say, again, virtually the same. Any differences could just be the batches or the age of my paints or how much they've dried out over use, but I would say that people looking for a Devlin mud substitute, they're going to have no problem with this, especially if it's just an overall tabletop comparison. Your army probably has much more variation based on how your abilities have progressed as you painted things than the paints themselves. Now these ones here aren't quite dry, but looking at Narlock green and Thraka green wash versus Lorien forest and Beil-Tan or Beil-Tan or however you pronounce that green. Overall impression, it looks like the new one has a slightly darker finish, but again, the difference is so minimal. There might be a little bit more richness in the color in the old one, but again, on the tabletop, the difference is going to be not noticeable. I'm gonna suggest, and if it is a problem, I'm sure you can change how you highlight maybe a little bit. That would change it. So overall, looking at these washes, shades. Gotta call them shades now because they're no longer washes. Basically, they're the same as the old ones. The colors seem to match pretty close for the ones that matter, i.e. Black and brown and green, at least for me. The other ones that might matter are the sepia. That's great for your mid-tone browns. So I'm going to have to try that out. And the flesh shade, I think these are going to be, based on the experience I've had with these first ones, I'm not concerned about that. But I do like how they flow. They seem to have a bit better flow ability than the old ones. But overall, basically the same, no significant change there. So that's a win. Alright, so leave some comments, let me know what your experiences have been, and I'm going to keep working on some other videos for the different parts of the range.